Hey everyone, it's Peter from Rock Daydream Nation. Look who's back. Mel Nee. Where have you been?
I've been
Traveling
to
the world?
yeah,
Fantastic. Well, good to have you back. And we're going to continue this ongoing series of a particular year is the greatest year in hard rock and heavy metal. When we last spoke, you said, let's do 1987. And I said, fantastic, because that was
absolutely.
certainly a stellar year. Just talking off camera, I think it was probably the commercial peak for heavy metal in the charts, at least. I can remember there was so many platinum or big selling albums. So we're just going to talk about, it's a free-form conversation. I'm going to pick a band, pick an album. We talk about what we think about it, maybe our experience with that band in a live setting, just memories. Let's get started. I'm going to start off with Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction.
The
That
biggest album of 1987, right?
slow burn, though. Slow burn. When it came out originally, and I remember reading this in a trade music paper, I was really intrigued. I actually read the review before I purchased it. And the person who reviewed it said it was like a mix of Hanoi Rocks meets Rolling Stones with a bit of Aerosmith. All these bands, this mix match, and it really got my interest because I think around 86, 87 was right in hair metal. And anything that had a little bit of a bluesy or a Stones element really got my interest. Purchased the album and bang, I was sold. I loved it straight away. So I'll just pause it there. What's your experience with this album the first time you heard it?
Same. So they did a stint on Headbangers Ball on MTV. It was just getting started in '87. Adam Curry was the presenter at the time, and it was considered like a very famous stint that they did on there because they were getting ready to revamp the set. So they told the guys from Guns N' Roses, when we're done with the interview, you guys can trash the set. Most people didn't know that they were already planning on remodeling, so it was just kind of like, oh my God. So like they did their interview and then they just tore the place apart and everybody was just like, oh, look at these guys. The thing about them was that they were kind of the anti-hair metal, right? They weren't as heavy as the thrash or the death metal and all of that kind of stuff. There was still melody, there was a good voice, blah 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 blah. So they kind of straddled that fence where they could kind of get both camps interested in them. They opened for Mötley Crüe. I That's the first time that I saw them was they opened for Mötley Crüe in 1987, and it was the Girls tour. And by then I had kind of checked out of Mötley Crüe, but I did always like to go to their shows. And for me, Guns N' Roses blew them off the stage. Now, that said, we do know that Axl's voice can sometimes be hit or miss live, even in the early days, but he was running around like a madman. They were all energetic. It was amazing. And that album was everywhere. That video for Sweet Child of Mine and Welcome to the Jungle was on rotation on MTV every 5 minutes.
I think they're gritty, I think they're dirty, and I think this album's a masterpiece and it holds up well to this day. I think it's one of
Agreed.
those 80s hard rock heavy metal albums that is cross generational and just keeps on going. And let's face it, their live act over the last 30 years or so has been mining the material out of that. There's so
Exactly.
many rock staples like Welcome to the Jungle, It's So Easy, Night Train, My Michelle, Sweet Child of Mine, which is probably
Brownstone.
the archetypical power ballad. You know, what more can you say? There was a chemistry. You had a ragtag bag of all these different characters, personalities, musical influences, and it was lightning in a bottle for a moment in time. I don't think they quite nailed that chemistry or that magic for the Use Your Illusion 2 and
Never again.
one and
Never
two.
again.
It kind of diluted it, and it was
Yep,
like the law of diminishing returns as you went on.
exactly.
So, in fact, I'm going to be talking with Alan Niven He's a friend to this channel. I've got some more questions about Guns N' Roses. So he
Oh,
was
we did.
the manager. But yeah, I just think it's just one of those moments where all the planets aligned, and it
Exactly.
was,
And
but it
they
was,
never recaptured it. They
it was
never
a
were
slow
able to. And
burn.
now, I mean, listen, they've been hanging their hat on that album for 100 years now.
Yeah, absolutely. But this, Mel, this is the era where rock music didn't have to, get that immediate sugar hit of a million sales in the first week or it's taken off the shelves. The record company pushed it and pushed it and pushed it because it took a long time for this album to really, sort of kick off. And it was the Sweet Child of Mine that really gave it that initial spark. And then
Exactly.
the rest is history. So, look, I'll put my hand on my heart. I think it's probably the best or one of the best albums of that year or the decade.
Agreed.
And,
Agreed. Agreed.
if you're going to look at a music encyclopedia in 50 years and you're going to talk about the 80s, this is one of the albums you have to talk about. So, Appetite
Absolutely.
for Destruction is the first
Absolutely.
one. Next one is another album that was a slow burn. And I'm going to talk about Def Leppard Hysteria. Now, I think it's a rock album, but I'm talking about it in the sense of this today's topic because the band is hard rock and heavy metal. I think as time went on, they started hard rock. They were a gritty, sort of energetic young group of lads that just were enthusiastic and played their instruments and were quite accomplished. But progressively over time, when they met Mutt Lang, they became more polished. Their songs and the production became more widescreen. And I think this album was basically they were an experiment in a science lab, Mutt Lang's science lab, because this whole album is just one. It's just using every studio bit of wizardry to the nth degree. I have a love hate relationship with this album, Mel. I love it. I hate it. I love it. I kind of like it at the moment, but I appreciate it's a rock album. I think the sweet spot for me in respect to Def Leppard is the early years and probably the previous album, Pyromania, is my preferred cup of tea. But I do appreciate this album. And again, this was a slow burn. It didn't really hit, fire straight away. But there was a certain little ditty called Pour Some Sugar on Me, which is a love it or hate it song. And it exploded. And this went on to diamond certification. So, enough of my yapping. What do you think of this album?
So, um, this is where I really started to question my love of uh love of the band. I love the first two albums. I really liked Pyromania, and this is we've talked before about how they've done this progression, right? They've moved towards where they wanted to go. And they had a plan. They had a plan in place, and this is their plan in place, and this is what they wanted to do. It's not an album that I listen to, and it's not one that I would reach for. I saw this tour. This really was the last. Actually, I did buy a dental eyes and hoping that they would right the ship, and it got worse. But um, yeah, for me, it's a little too sugary. Pardon the pun. I did see the tour. And that song "Pour Some Sugar on Me" rivaled "Sweet Child of Mine" on MTV. It was on the other every 5 minutes. It was a very, very popular song. I have some friends. I later on had moved to Denver, Colorado, and I had some friends that were at that show at McNichols Arena, and that's that video that you see. That's where they are. They're at McNichols Arena in Denver, Colorado. And he was saying how they did the song like 8 times. He's like, after a while, you're like, all right, but that's where that video was done. And that's what you see on that video. But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a stripper song. It's a song that the carpool moms like. It's kind of syrupy and catchy. It's danceable. So it kind of ticks all the boxes. But for the metalheads, not so much.
Joe Elliott, I think loves glam, 70s
Oh, he
glam. He
does.
loves Motley
100%.
Crue, he loves Sweet, he loves Slade. And a
100%.
lot of the stylings and the melodies of this album go back, hark back to the 70s with modern technology. So even when you think of, um, the Pour Some Sugar on Me, the rhythmic beats are very stomping. It's like a Slade song. It's very stomping and rhythmic. And I guess you had to because the drummer was, he'd lost his arm and he was using, sort of electronic drums. And full kudos because to be, I think they were in a band of brothers. That's what I appreciated about
No,
Def Leppard.
absolutely.
If they weren't a
100%.
band of brothers, if that was Motley Crue, you'd be out on the curb. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And I wanted to give them, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to kind of give them my business because of that, because I really appreciated them as people and for what that they stood by
Mm,
their pal, and they tried to figure out a way for him to stay in the band, and so for me that means a lot.
yeah. I appreciate the wordplay too. I think it's clever. Are you getting it? Am I getting it? Um, and mole, the way the phrasing, there's some clever wordplay, um, interesting sort of melody lines, and the technology for its time was just out of control. It's a real headphones. There's certain songs where you're hearing a Ronald Reagan speech, and then you're hearing like rockets exploding, and certainly Mutt Lange was in a sort of in a sort of in a lab. Alan Levin, commonly calls it his favourite boy band, which I have a bit of a chuckle. He loves them, but he says they're a heavy metal
Yeah,
boy
yeah,
band.
yeah. He's
Um,
right.
yeah, but
Yeah.
you can't deny it. It was a commercial
Oh
juggernaut. And
yeah.
again, this is another album where they mine it to this very day. So they recorded a lot of albums. Commercially, there was a diminishing returns. Adrenalize was dreadful. It got worse. They had you know, they did slang. They tried
Ugh,
to get a little bit up with grunge. But ultimately, they always go back to this era, this 1987 era. Personally, I just wish they just cut the gloss, get back to the early days and
me
just
too.
rock it
Me too.
out, no frills. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. But anyway, I appreciate it and we have to talk about it. So that would probably be the second biggest commercial
Yep.
album of that particular era. The next one, band. I'm a tragic for this band. Got to talk about Whitesnake 1987. Wow,
Shocking.
did this explode? Tawny Katane, Jaguar, David Coverdale, John Sykes. Look, I've spoken enough on this channel. Just check out the shows to know. I've pulled it apart forensically. But look, there's no denying what John Sykes and David Coverdale had was lightning in a bottle. It was like a brief relationship. It was fiery. The bromance between those two, and they made great music, but it was not built to last. But boy,
No.
some of those singles were just mind blowing. I've always said that Still of the Night is probably one of the greatest hard rock songs of all time. And definitely it's my number one Whitesnake song. I love the old bluesy Whitesnake, and I'll defend that to the death, but I
Me
love
too. Me
Still of
too.
the Night. I never get sick of that song. I watch the video, even though it's a little bit, how should I say, in 2026 eyes, a little bit, don't know if it cuts it, but I still can't turn away. I just love everything about this album. Um, Bad Boys, their redoing of Crying in the Rain, I think is wonderful. Um, Here I Go Again, a number one hit. Look, I know the struggle that David Coverdale went through. He was like on the bones of his ass in LA, like a 35-year-old, and he was able to pull it off and became a superstar all over again. And they were a very big band for a brief moment in time, 87, 88.
Absolutely.
Originally, they supported Mötley Crüe, and by the end of the tour, they were headlining.
Yep.
So, look, enough of my gas gassing on. Tell me what you think of this album and any recollections of that era.
So, so I'm also more of the bluesy earlier Whitesnake, but there was no denying this. And I am a Sykes fan, so I was all in with this. Again, it goes back to, I think part of the theme of 87, late 80s in general, is how important MTV was to these bands. What that did for them, the exposure, the national radio show, if you will, about this, the onset of shows like Headbangers Ball in 1987. I cannot stress enough how important in the US MTV was in this movement. And the other thing is, three albums that we've talked about, technically nowadays are not considered heavy metal. Back then, they were considered heavy metal. They were considered, those three albums that we've just talked about were considered heavy metal albums in 1987. Where now maybe the needles moved a little bit, and you would definitely wouldn't say that they're heavy metal albums. But yeah, again, the video catapulted this band. John Sykes is a guitar hero.
But he sacked
Yeah,
John
so he's got
Sykes.
all of them.
John
He's got
Sykes is a John Sykes is very good looking. All right,
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
only because you told me offline. But anyway, he's very good looking.
So that was
And
the whole thing. So
he got rid of him,
the
and he assembled this United
yeah,
Nation video
yeah,
band who became the touring
yeah,
band. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Because aesthetics mattered so much in the 80s. It really, really did. If you didn't have the aesthetics, you didn't do as well. People wanted to see the visual.
Yeah. So you couldn't have Bernie Marsden with a beer gut playing the Gibson Les Paul. Better, great guitarist, but that wasn't going to
Right,
cut it in '87,
right,
was it?
right,
Hmm.
right. That's not what they wanted to see.
Yeah. I think it is heavy metal because there are some songs on side one, um, you know, Crying in the Rain. Listen to that middle section where Ainsley Dunbar is double kicking the drum kit to death. And John Sykes is doing his little, he's doing the little fretboard gymnastics. That's heavy metal. Still of the Night, that's heavy metal. Bad Boys has got that kind of chugga chugga, that real guitar sound. I think, yeah, there's a lot of pop metal, but there's a lot of real heavy metal. I think it's probably Whitesnake at their heaviest.
Oh, it is definitely Whitesnake at their heaviest. I mean, John Sykes heavies everybody up. I mean, the same thing when he was in Thin Lizzy, right? The album that he was on was the heaviest Thin Lizzy album. So, I mean, John Sykes heavies
Yeah,
things up. I just don't
yeah.
know if that album came out today, if it would necessarily be considered, or would be considered like on the line or sort of to the left of the
Mm,
of heavy metal, of
yeah,
what
yeah. Understand.
subgenres nowadays.
Understand. Question for you: did you see them live?
He did.
And please do tell.
So they were amazing, and this is back when David Coverdale had a great voice, and he was energetic, and John Sykes was so like I just watched him the whole time. I
No,
mean,
but
because
this
he
tour, John Sykes wasn't on it. Did you see the tour when they supported Motley Crue? And it was they had Adrian Vanderberg and they had
no, I don't think I saw.
Vivian Campbell.
No, I didn't see them. I didn't see them with
Oh,
Motley
okay.
Crue.
So you saw the
Only-
slide in liner before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Okay. Got you. Sorry, I didn't mean to trick you.
no, but I didn't mean to confuse you. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I thought you were asking me if I saw John Sykes. Yeah, yeah, I didn't. Yeah, and I wish I had gone. I don't know why I didn't go.
Mm,
I'm not really like I saw Motley Crue, but I saw them with Guns N' Roses, and I don't know if maybe they didn't come around with Motley Crue.
mm,
I don't remember why I didn't
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
But I
Fair
wanted to
enough.
see everything. It maybe
Um,
conflicted with something else.
that's okay. That's okay. Here I go again. I think that's like Sinatra, My Way. That's like the David Coverdale, New York, New York, isn't it? It's his signature
Yeah,
song, isn't it? And
it is
that
this.
song is like cha-ching. I hear it in commercials. I hear it in movies. It's been in so many movies. Like I remember seeing The Boxer with Christian Bale and the finale, and there it was. Here I go again. Cobra Kai fight scene. Here I go again. It's like it keeps on going. So
It is. Yeah.
it has done wonderful and a very deserved number one hit. But alas, it was brief. Slip of the tongue, not so good, and then it got swept with all the other bands when grunge
Right.
took over, which is
Yeah, that window was small and it closed.
it does. But you got to grab it while it's hot. Got to grab it while it's hot.
Yeah,
Speaking of
absolutely.
a band that keeps on going and going and going, and I think they were more known for their tabloid nonsense than anything musical. Let's face it, was Motley Crue and Girls, Girls, Girls. So they had a different image. They shed the levers and the satanic. And what was the previous album? The previous album was Theatre of Pain, where they went all glammy and pink.
Glammy.
Yeah, so
Yeah, they
this
were.
is more of a biker look.
Yeah,
Um, I like this album. It's got some charm. I don't mind Girls, Girls, Girls. It's okay. Um, Probably not their best album, but I think it's an improvement of Theatre of Pain, and we did a whole show on that.
we
Check
did. We
check that
did.
out. Copped a bit of heat because there's a lot of people that still like that album, but I think this was a step up. Anyway, what do you think of this album, and any
I think it
recollection of
was
the tour?
a step up. Wild Side is probably the best song on the album for me. Um,
Yes.
I did see this tour because, like I said, I always went to see them because it was always a fun night out. Um, yeah, I mean the biker image was kind of like whatever. Nobody took that seriously. But they're always fun live. I owned the album at the time. I don't have it anymore. I never reached for it, but I did check it out and I did buy it and I did think it was better than Theater of Pain. But I had kind of already moved on to other stuff, and so they weren't really on my list of things to do, if you will. I was moving into a lot of the heavier stuff, so yeah, I kind of wasn't really. I mean, other than those bigger albums that we just talked about, or like Iron Maiden, obviously, but I was moving towards more of the heavier stuff at that
Yeah.
time.
I remember getting it in the day, and I used to spin it a fair bit, but it doesn't get spun very much in the Kerr household. Maybe occasionally if I'm on assignment, and that's about
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah, but
exactly.
I probably would go to their first couple of albums, which I play a lot more, or the
100%,
Motley Crue self-titled. But
100%.
anyway, um, let's talk Aerosmith. They had a bit of a comeback, didn't they, with Permanent Vacation? This is a bit of a divisive album. A lot of the old fans that love the 70s and regard Aerosmith as one of the all time greatest American bands were probably a little bit disappointed because they brought in outside writers. It's a very slick sounding album. It had started to have, very pop-tastic hooks that were made for radio. But it sold a ton. What did you think about this album and any experiences with Aerosmith in this era?
Yeah, I was disappointed because I'm an old school Aerosmith fan, and everybody was kind of like the old school fans were like, "What the is this?" I mean, this was just and they did bring in the outside writers. It felt very um I don't know, disjointed, I guess, or it didn't feel like the Aerosmith that we knew and loved. And everybody was, super high, and I mean, there was a lot of behind the scenes of nonsense going on, and everybody was kind of a mess, and it didn't really work for me. I mean, it worked in the sense that it's a huge selling album. They got videos on MTV. They have songs that you've heard in commercials. The mainstream, your carpool mom really liked this album. But for us, for the die-hard, old school Aerosmith fans, yeah, it wasn't. It was interesting because it was like you've got Aerosmith doing this album, and then you've got Guns N' Roses basically doing early Aerosmith at this time. So it's kind of a weird thing. It was kind of like Guns N' Roses is doing Aerosmith better than Aerosmith.
Yeah, I've got a theory about this because the previous album was done with mirrors, where they were right in their cocaine habit, and it sounded like it was done in a crack den, recorded in a
Yeah,
crack den. It's really
yeah,
dungy, and this is the sort of album when you go to rehab and come out the other side. It's all sparkly and shiny, and maybe some of the grit has been washed off. You know,
yeah.
too much. I
Doesn't work for
like
me.
it. It's got personality. You can still, there's still enough sass of Steven Tyler, like Ragdoll. Dude looks like a lady is, I always have a bit of a smile on that
That's a
one.
funny song. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you know,
Um, I think Pump is much better in respect of they were working on the poptastic, getting outside riders. I think if you like that sort of thing, that was much more realized sort of album where they were going in that direction. But I guess this is the album that had to save their lives. This is what happens when gritty bands go into rehab. So,
yeah, yeah. Which
yeah.
is, I always say that about, I always want, as a human, I want people to, thrive and be healthy and everything, but
Mm.
it tends to sometimes mess up people's vision and people's you know,
Art
a lot
suffers,
of times,
mate.
the stuff that they do when they're effed up is better.
Yeah, well, we have to bring this up because it does fall into the category of this show because it was a huge album. So,
Absolutely, absolutely was.
yeah. Why don't we